Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Ones, a series on my channel in which our goal is to visit all of the flight number ones that exist in the world. Today's flight number one is Hawaiian Airlines from Los Angeles, California, out to Honolulu, Hawaii. Welcome this early morning to the Tom Bradley International Terminal here in Los Angeles, where we hop on board our Hawaiian Airlines A330 in the business class cabin out to Hawaii. Now, some people love LAX, some people hate it. But what you can't argue is that there's always some level of construction going on around this airport. Just at my one terminal here, you can see on all sides of me I am cornered by construction. Now, crossing the street before we headed inside the terminal, one of the first things, of course, is all the airline signage outside of the terminal to make sure you're in the right place for your airline. And the only airline that I did not see here was my airline, Hawaiian Airlines, which was peculiar considering that it's the only domestic carrier that operates out of this international terminal. And so you figured they'd want to have a little bit extra signage for people who may be a little less familiar. Eventually I did find my sign behind, of course, a little bit more construction here in Los Angeles. I did later find another sign that was pointing to the Hawaiian Airlines departures. However, I did find it peculiar that they didn't have maybe a little bit more signage explaining that you were in the correct location. But with that, let's head inside and check in for our flight to Hawaii. Now, when you walk into the building here at Tom Bradley International Terminal at LAX, you've got a big open room with a few different hallways, and they do have some signs to help you find your counter, but it's not exactly the easiest to find that exact counter within that row, considering the airlines don't exactly have too much signage to mark their place. So expect to be hunting for at least a little bit, to find your counter. Right towards the middle of the terminal, I found my section here for Hawaiian Airlines, where there was already a long line, even though this was the first departure of the day out of this terminal. So I decided to find it a little bit easier to go ahead and use the self-service check-in kiosks. For domestic flights, this is no problem. If you have an international flight, it may block your ability to check in if they do have to check your documents at the counter, but that will change depending on what airline you're flying. But for Hawaiian, it was absolutely no problem, and considering that I was planning on carrying on my bag anyway, it was no big deal to use that check-in kiosk, cut the line, and head off to security. Now, the check-in area is actually on the ground floor here in this terminal, and security is going to be up ahead. You can see the balcony up top, so it'll take an escalator upstairs, get onto your security checkpoint, and luckily, considering, like I said, that we were the first departure of the day out of this terminal, there was absolutely no line, and so I was able to get through security in about 10 seconds. Even those without pre-check were able to get through in about the same amount of time. And one thing that is kind of a rare sight to see here in LAX is an empty departures board in the international terminal, considering that they are one of the busiest airports in the United States. But with that, we are through security, we are on to the rest of the terminal, and this is where the Tom Bradley International Terminal really blows me away. I think the interior of their terminal is fantastic. So this is just the pathway here that takes you over the Customs and Border Patrol walkway and onto the rest of the open terminal. Now, it's going to dump you out here in this main central area, and I think it's just wonderful considering how open this space is. They have a ton of shops, they have a ton of different lounges on the different levels, and when the sun is shining and it's out, you have it coming through all the many windows around the borders, and it makes for this nice open air concept here in the central area. A nice relaxing place to wait for your flight, or if you are connecting, to hang out for a little bit while you wait for your connecting flight. Now, as far as the setup of the international terminal at LAX goes, you can see arrows to the right and left. Basically, you're right in the middle of one big long wing with a ton of gates on it, and there's also an underground walkway that takes you to a second wing. So recently they added that, and it basically doubled the amount of gates they could fit as the LAX International Airport just continues to grow and become the massive airport that it is. Now overhead, you'll also see all these glass walkways in this terminal, and that's for the international arriving passengers. So for those passengers arriving that have to go through immigration, they come out all these different walkways from each jet bridge, takes them to one central walkway, which then funnels them off to immigration. If you're curious what that process looks like, go ahead and take a look at my Avianca video where I took a flight from Buenos Aires to Los Angeles via Bogota, and you'll see exactly what that process looks like. Now, as far as what kind of airplanes you're going to find at LAX here at about 6 a.m., it's mostly American Airlines. There's not a whole lot of international airlines that are making a presence this early. Now, I will say that I am grateful for the renovations that Los Angeles has done to their airport, especially here in the international terminal. Plenty of great restaurants so that while you are waiting for your flight, you can get plenty of nice food that isn't just McDonald's or Burger King. You can actually get some sort of local or at least some sort of craft food and drink while you hang out and wait. Gate 130 was going to be ours today, and it was time to head out that direction, which is at the far end of the first wing of the international terminal here in Los Angeles, although Hawaiian Airlines does move around from gate to gate, so don't expect it to always be in the same place. One thing that I will mention is that Hawaiian Airlines only has lounges in their Hawaii locations, so there was no lounge access even though we're in a first-class cabin on a flight that's over 5 hours. So keep that in mind. If you are looking for some food, you're probably going to have to purchase that, especially if you're leaving this early out of Los Angeles, considering that there was no lounges open this time of day, no matter what airline you were flying. That being said, our plane was being towed into the gate, so we didn't exactly have too much time to kill, so it wasn't the end of the world. Our plane had actually arrived the night before from Maui, and was sitting at hard stand, and now they were towing it in, ready for it to be catered and take us back out to Honolulu. We ended up switching from gate 130 to 134, but our plane was here and it was ready to take us on board, so we began our boarding process. That being said, the boarding process went fairly quickly. Our flight was pretty much entirely full, but even still, they were able to get the entire A330 boarded with the doors shut in all about 30 minutes, and we actually ended up pushing about 5 minutes before our scheduled push. Now, through the door and to the left, you'll find the first class cabin, or if you're traveling on one of their international routes to Japan or Oceania, it'll be marketed as a business class cabin, although it is the same seats. You'll find it in a 222 configuration, which is outdated by today's standards. However, you do have to remember that Hawaiian Airlines is largely a vacation airline, so they aren't exactly going for the top of the line service that you'll find on airlines like Emirates and Qatar nowadays, but more so along the likes of Eurowings Discover long-haul routes, where they are just there to serve kind of the middle of the pack. They aren't exactly a flag carrier, but they are serving some sort of luxury cabin experience for those passengers going on a quick vacation. With that though, let's take a look at the seat and what it has to offer for us. Now, while the seat doesn't have individual seat controls, it does have the main roller that can bring the seat all the way into a lie-flat bed, although the pillow and blankets were pretty basic on this flight. And below that, you're going to find a USB charging port, the light button, and the flight attendant call button right there in your center console. And below that, you're going to find a little bit of a shelf for some basic storage. It's not going to hold too much, but if you do have your phone with you or something that is plugged into that outlet, it will fit just fine in this area. In the center armrest are some hidden gadgets like a divider that can be pulled up, a tray table that can be push released, and a tablet holder over by the cup holders that can also be push released. In addition to that, you are given the basic pillow and blanket, which, considering the average flight is only about 5 to 6 hours on Hawaiian Airlines, they don't have to be the most lavish pillow and blanket. But I'm curious on their longer flights from Boston and New York if they do give you any sort of extra bedding, considering most people, I would assume, are sleeping on those 9 to 12 hour flights. To my right side here, you also can see a small pocket, which works well if you are in the full lie-flat position, if you do want to store your phone, kind of alarm, or some sort of literature that you're reading when you go to sleep. In front of you is the Hawaiian Airlines literature pocket that comes with the seat, which has your safety card, your air sickness bag, as well as an in-flight magazine, which I feel like is becoming more and more rare these days. I'm seeing in-flight magazines on less and less airplanes as time goes on. Here we're going to see some of these push release items. For starters, here's the tablet holder. You'll notice there is no in-flight entertainment built into the seat. Once we get in flight though, you'll see they do hand out tablets that has some entertainment on it, and it can be mounted right here in this push release holder. Behind that is the tray table, which is released in the same way by pushing it to release it, pulling it all the way out, and in all honesty, this tray table is of a pretty nice size. The other thing you'll find here in the center console is this divider that can be pulled up from between the seats. This one doesn't push release, you can just pull it up here, and it's not exactly the biggest thing in the world, but if you are traveling next to someone that you don't know and you are in a relaxed position, this does block you from seeing them almost entirely, so it does make for a little bit more private of an experience in your seat. In addition to that, on the front of the center console, you're going to find a universal charging outlet and one more USB power port. So if you do have multiple devices, do not worry because there is space to charge all of those. Now, something that is super nice about this cabin is you can see here, even with my backpack under the seat in front of me, there is plenty of room for me to spread my feet out, especially to the left and right, and I could put them up on the footrest above if I really needed some more space to spread out. Now, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the dark brown interior. However, because of the contrast with the light white plastic underneath, when there are little nicks to the seat, they stand out a lot more. You can see here just little nicks that have worn out on the seat over time with the paint chipping and whatnot. And while I still do think the seat overall was in great condition, any little problem with the seat stood out just that much more. When we sat down, menus were actually waiting for us in our seat, and the menus that you're given depends on which routes you're flown, which is similar to pretty much all flights, but for flights that are leaving from western US cities to Hawaii here, at this time of day, we're given their breakfast menu for this particular flight. You can pause and take a little bit more of a look here at the different options, but they didn't come around and get our choices. Everyone just got the exact same breakfast and appetizers on this flight. Pre-departure beverage choices are a little different on Hawaiian. Of course, you have to go for the Paso Guava Mai Tai. Even though it is only 6:30 a.m., a trip to Hawaii does not start until your first Paso Guava Mai Tai. Now, I wouldn't call the temperature hot, but we'll call it tropical in the spirit of the islands. That being said, there is no individual air vents over your head, and so if you are getting warm, you're going to have to shed a layer or two in order to keep yourself at a good temperature. Here you can see a Zip Air 787 next to us. If you haven't seen my last video that went up about Zip Air, go ahead and take a look at that on a flight from Tokyo out to San Jose in the economy class of their 787. And as we push back, we got a wonderful view of the sun rising over the wave-like structure here at the Tom Bradley International Terminal. And as we taxi out, we also got a great view of the San Gregorio Mountains, and if you look really hard, you'll see downtown Los Angeles far off in the distance. Now for the normal safety video, for those of you sitting in the first class cabin, they actually did have a separate video explaining just how to use all the different functions of that seat specifically that was not played back in the economy cabin. And as we approach our runway here in Los Angeles, you can see the theme building in the background, which is the giant archway right next to the tower. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy our departure off to Honolulu. Now, like I mentioned, there is no fully installed seatback entertainment screen, but the screens on the bulkhead continuously move with a map and stats about the flight that you are on, so you can see exactly how much time you have and the path that you've traveled. Our departure from Los Angeles today actually took us pretty far up California's coast to about the central coast before we made our turn out to the Pacific Ocean and out towards Hawaii. And I don't know who Steve's iPhone is, but hopefully he has enough hotspot to get the rest of us all the way to Hawaii, because there is no in-flight Wi-Fi on Hawaiian Airlines fleet just yet. It does seem as if they are going through the process, however, of installing in-flight Wi-Fi on their Trans-Pacific fleet, but that has yet to come. In the meantime, however, we did have our in-flight magazine, so while we waited for the tablets to be passed out so we could watch our movies and TV shows, we did get a chance to look through what this in-flight magazine consisted of. Now, Hawaiian Airlines route network, in addition to their routes between the Hawaiian Islands, is mostly to the west coast of the United States. They've recently branched out to places like Boston, New York, and Austin, Texas as well. In addition to that, they also serve a pretty good international market that also seems to be growing in the meantime, with places in Australia, Japan, and the American Samoa. So if you are coming from the east or west and you're looking for a nice Hawaiian vacation, Hawaiian Airlines probably has you taken care of. And as we got just north of California's central coast and approached the coastline of Monterey, we made our turn out to open ocean, and they passed out the complimentary tablets and headsets that we could use for our in-flight entertainment on this flight. Kind of a bummer you don't have it for the departure or arrival, but at least for the bulk of the flight en route, you do have this in-flight entertainment. Now, as far as the options go on this entertainment, it's not entirely plentiful, but there's more than enough for people of all ages to watch on the flights that are in their route network. If you have a round-trip flight to Hawaii, you probably will have enough to watch. And if you're an adventurous movie watcher, you probably have plenty. But if you are somewhat picky, don't expect to have stuff to watch if you do fly this airline over and over again. One thing I find kind of funny about the A330, 300s, and 200s is that it doesn't really matter how new the interior of the cabin is when it was last remodeled. Every single restroom you'll find for the most part on one of the older A330s looks exactly the same, no matter which airline you happen to be on. Here, about an hour into the flight, it was time for our meal service. I started with the Pog Juice, Paso Guava, along with a nice bowl of macadamia nuts. All in all, a Hawaiian signature dish and starter, which was a great start to my meal. After that, I went with a nice cup of coffee, which they made, and this cup of coffee was actually pretty tasty. Compared to the US standards, as far as what you'd expect on airlines like United and Delta, I actually found this to be one of the better cups of coffee on a US airline. That was followed shortly thereafter by the meal service. They started on the left aisle, which means that a lot of people actually had their meal before they even came by to offer us ours. Like I said, the meal service also only consisted of one choice. There wasn't exactly multiple choices, although they did give you a menu at least to see what you were offered, and I'm assuming that if you were vegetarian, there were other options for you. That being said, you can see here we were given a croissant, some fresh fruit, and a nice egg scramble that came with some vegetables and a beef patty. And after that was our dessert, they filled my coffee up one more time, along with my chocolatey coffee cake that came after the rest of that meal. One thing that Hawaiian Airlines does well is feed you. If you've seen my previous video on Hawaiian Airlines on the A321, you'll see that I was stuffed upon landing, and the same was true on this flight as well, even after a nice rest. With that though, I decided to recline my seat and maybe get a couple hours of sleep, considering I had to wake up pretty early to get on this flight, but at the very least I was plenty comfortable. Now, after about a short 2 to 3 hour nap, I was well rested and ready for my arrival into Honolulu. Now, a nice thing here, you can see there's plenty of space to the left and right of my feet, and because there's no seat directly above my feet, I really had enough space to make the space my own, spread out, and sleeping was very easy in this seat. But after a 2 to 3 hour nap, we were basically on our descent into Honolulu, which means time was limited. So I went to the galley, I grabbed a quick snack from the cart, and that kept me nourished for the rest of my flight. But in that case, it was time to prepare for descent. On descent, they showed us a wonderful video welcoming us to the islands here, and it included plenty of stuff about the islands. In addition, it talked about how you can't bring some items onto the islands. Similar to if you're traveling international, any sort of fresh produce and stuff of those lines are not allowed on the islands, considering that they want to keep all the flora and fauna that is there unique to the islands. So there is a form that you fill out here, which is similar to that when you're traveling international, to prove that you didn't bring any prohibited items with you on your trip. This form actually has to be turned into the flight attendants in order to get any bags that you might have checked once you get to baggage claim. Now you will see here on this divider that it does have to be stowed for takeoff and landing, which meant that since we were in the bulk of our descent, everything had to be stowed, which means the divider had to go back down. I had to once again share my space. Not the end of the world, my seatmate was actually very friendly. I also had to hand back my tablet and headset, stow my tablet holder, and stow my tray table. So the space was once again my own with plenty of space, but the entertainment was now up to me considering I had handed in my tablet. Luckily, the Hawaiian Islands make for some wonderful entertainment as you descend into Hawaii. Finally, the island of Oahu came into sight. Honolulu is on the island of Oahu, which is one of the Hawaiian Islands. It's the most populous island here in Hawaii. It has a pretty large military presence. It also has the seat of government for the state capital here as well. But all in all, no matter which island you're going to, you have wonderful views of the nice blue waters and the mountainous volcanic terrain as you do arrive to your airport. Now, as my phone struggles to get a shot of Waikiki Beach here in the background, time for some final thoughts here as we arrive into Honolulu. Now, obviously, Hawaiian Airlines flight number 1 from Los Angeles to Honolulu is a continuation of my series titled The Ones, where our goal is to get on all of the flight number 1s that exist in the world. Now, Hawaiian Airlines flight number 1, in the first class cabin, I am comparing it largely to the other US domestic first class cabins. And while the seat isn't exactly as nice as United's Polaris suite or the Delta One suites, that's not exactly what they're going for. They do serve their niche very well, which, like I mentioned, is just a vacation airline. And so they are just serving the niche of people that are trying to go from the mainland United States or some places in Asia and Oceania just to the Hawaiian Islands. And what they do extremely well is start the service and the food and the spirit of the islands before you even get to the islands. So about 6 hours before you get there, when you just get on board your flight and you have the music playing in the cabin and you have the wonderful welcoming crew, your Hawaiian experience can start just a little bit sooner than if you were to fly one of the other US mainline airlines. That being said, I am curious about your thoughts. If you were going to fly from the US, Asia, or Oceania to Hawaii, would you choose to fly Hawaiian Airlines? Or would you choose to fly maybe one of the larger airlines that also flies to Hawaiian? Now, another thing I do have to mention as we taxi in here is you'll see this gate here descending from the heavens, it seems. And I'm curious if you guys know what this gate is used for. There was a couple of them. One of them actually went to the all-Nippon A380, but it looked like it did not come from the main part of the terminal, so I am curious if maybe you can board from the lounge on those flights. But go ahead and let me know down in the comments if you are aware of what those are used for. And that's it for this flight as we say goodbye to the Hawaiian Airlines first class cabin. I'm sure it won't be the last time that we visit this cabin, considering that obviously I very much enjoy my time in Hawaii, and when I am able to get into a premium cabin, I do always enjoy it. But with that, welcome to Honolulu. We're going to head inside to actually a pretty newly renovated Hawaiian Airlines terminal here in Honolulu. You'll see what they have to offer as we walk out to the curb. And while the remodel might not be completely finished, it does look much better here than what it did look like back in the past. Here we finally have the vaulted ceilings, much more natural light, and what people really come to Hawaii for is the wonderful panoramic views here of the greenery, the flora, and the fauna. But for us, however, this concludes our journey. We will definitely be back on Hawaiian Airlines, so you can stay posted for some more on Hawaiian Airlines and the rest of the Honolulu airport. We're out to baggage claim, out to the curb, and out into the beautiful state of Hawaii. This has been The Ones, episode number 9 on Hawaiian Airlines first class cabin. Stay posted for some more videos, and as always, thank you for watching.